many hats here. He is a teacher and a practitioner and a minister, and he also leads our board of directors, or core council. We're very, very grateful that he has stepped up. He's an associate minister here, and just delighted to have him with us. So please join me in welcoming him.
So, first of all, how is everyone today?
Great.
Okay, so look. You just heard, "This little light of mine." Come on now, so how are you today?
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you. Because the thing is, even if you don't feel it, even if you don't believe it, the idea is fake it or faith it till you make it. So even if you don't feel great, say you feel great, because it's part of the training of your mind that's going to eventually lead to you feeling great. You follow what I'm saying? So let's try this once again. How are you feeling today?
Awesome.
There you go. So how many of you, this is your first time seeing me? Because there's a couple of faces okay, so just give you a little bit of background information. When I was growing up, I was someone who had a lot of suicidal ideations, right? Hated my life, hated a bunch of things about my life, hated everybody in my family, I just hated stuff. I hated my friends, I hated my family, I hated me, I hated everything. And at some point, I'm probably in middle school, I think is when the first time I heard this thing, where it says, "The unexamined life is a life not worth living." Now, you say this to somebody who's already walking the tightrope of, I really shouldn't be here. So, and then you get this, and the teacher says, "So I want you all to read this, and then come in next week and tell me what it means to you." And the only thing that was going in my mind is, this means to me that this is my reason for I should check out. Like, this was giving me the reason, because my life is not worth living. But then I decided to sit with it for a while. Like my father, being the nerd I was, my father was like, just break it down word by word. The unexamined. What does that mean, for something to be unexamined? So I broke it down and broke it down and broke it down and came to this realization that basically what it is saying is the same thing the oracle at the Temple of Delphi was saying, know thyself. So if I were to ask the average person in this room, we're not going to, public school teacher in me wants to, but I won't, no pop quizzes yet. If I were to ask, how well do you know yourself? Do you have in your mind, in your heart, how well do you know yourself? And I'm not talking about name, status, height, weight, favorite things you like. I'm talking about, because that's on the surface. Like, that's the stuff that the average person, I could walk down to the middle of some corner in DC and ask the average person, tell me about yourself. And everyone's going to have an answer about something. Some of us will say, well, what would you like to know? I want to know the stuff about you that you don't even know that you don't even know. Like, I want to go deep down into, how many people in here, sorry, I said I wasn't going to do this. I do want you to raise your hand on this one, though. How many people in here have buttons or strings? You have something that someone can push or someone can pull where you're like, oh, you know what? You can't control me. Someone says something and it gets under your skin. And they may not say it directly to you. They could say it to someone else. Or you see how someone treats someone else and you get angry. You want to step in. You see, there was a video that my niece posted on Facebook of a restaurant in Pittsburgh where the video doesn't show exactly why this happened, but a restaurant owner assaulted this woman in the restaurant, slammed her and head-butted her and this whole thing. And in the captions of, people commenting on the video, there was the comment of, oh, so all of you could pull out your phones and film it, but none of you could step in to help. And this, you read the comments and people are like in their feelings. They're angry. Do you know what pushes your buttons? But even more, do you know why, whatever that is, pushes your buttons? Do you know why things get under your skin? Do you know what it is about you that certain things can take you out of Shanti? Like certain things can take you out of that. One of the things that when I first learned about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was this whole idea of when he would gather people together to go on these peaceful protests, these sit-ins, etc. They had practice beforehand. And the person would get in your face and call your grandmother names and spit on you and push you. And anybody that they saw clench a fist. Boop, thanks for playing, but unfortunately you can do mailings, you can lick envelopes, but you can't go out there because you might step out of what we need you to do. Right? So there's this thing about how well trained are we? You know, in the martial arts, there's this whole idea of training and training and training till it becomes second nature. Till you don't have to think about it. How many people saw Karate Kid? Wax on, wax off, right? And wax on, wax off, sand the floor, paint the fence, paint the house, blah, 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 right? And Daniel gets mad. I've been cleaning your house and I came here to learn karate and I haven't. Oos! Tells Daniel, shut up, right? And then he says, sand up, floor, or wax on, wax off. And Daniel goes, he said, stand up, stand up. So he's like, okay, stand up. He said, no, not stand up, blah, 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 blah. And he goes through the motions, and he goes through everything. Then he says, okay, now. And he starts punching, and Daniel's like, pop, 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 whoa, whoa. And then he stops, and he's like, oh, I didn't. He says, see you tomorrow, bye, get out of my house. Right? But this idea that he was doing these motions and didn't realize that he was doing karate, till it became ingrained in him that when the punch came, his body, his mind didn't have to have time to think. It was simply respond. Do we train in this philosophy, in this teaching, to respond in the same way?
Good question.
So the thing is, this year, CSL is celebrating 100 years of Science of Mind, right? So last week I was at CSL Baltimore, and somewhere in there I asked this question of, what is science of mind? If someone were to walk up to you and say, Deesh, I have $1 million if you can answer this question. What is science of mind, right? And I didn't mean to put you on the spot because she's probably going to hit me for that. How many of us have an answer? When I first got into New Thought, stepping from Christianity very tentatively and very carefully, people would say, oh, Ray, so you want to come to my church next week? No, I got a place to go, thanks. Oh, so what church do you go to? First thing, is it a church or is it not a church? And if I say it's not, and they're going to ask me, what is it? Where is it? Well, if it's not a church, what is it and what do you do? Do I have an answer? So for the longest time, I lied. Plain because I didn't want to engage in the whole, well, see, let me explain to you. I didn't want to go through that, so I just lied. And I didn't lie like an outright lie because, as Reverend Alex said, we do still read and study the Bible, etc. I didn't mention, oh, well, yes, we read and study the Bhagavad Gita. Because I knew they were going to say, you do what? Isn't that a food? No, it's not a food, it's a book. Shut up. Like, I didn't want to go into all of that. So I just said, yes. I go to this very spiritual place. We don't really call it a church, but yes, we still study Jesus, etc., etc. They're like, oh, that's cool. I might visit one. Boop, you're not invited. Because I don't feel like hearing it. But that whole idea. So I had to get into this place of being comfortable with being uncomfortable to step into my truth. So this idea of, well, what is science of mind? And what is it that you come to? And even beyond that, not just what is this and why do you come here? Because that brings us into the topic of today, the unexamined life. And this idea of whatever this thing is that science of mind is, if we don't use it, we lose it, per se, for the sake of conversation. But what is it? Like, what is the it that we are learning to use? There has to be something, whether, so, talk amongst yourselves for a quick second. So check this out. You know what this is, right? Yeah. I feel like I said this last week at Baltimore. I said, I feel like Joel Osteen. This is my textbook. I believe what it says. Like, I felt like I should do that. But check this out. On the front of this one, it says, the science of mind, a philosophy, a faith, a way of life. Like, it specifies that the science of mind is a philosophy. So what does it mean to practice a philosophy? It's a faith. What does it mean to live or practice whatever this faith is? It is a way of life. How do I know if I am living this way of life? There are certain things, certain ways of living, that it's easy to identify. A vegan lifestyle. It's easy to identify. This is meat I don't eat. Like that's cut and dry. It's very simple. Something comes, okay, what is this? What was this made with? Was it made with vegan milk and cheese? Or it's made with, I can't eat that. Like, it's very clear cut. You know what to ask. You know what to eat. You know, you learn how to cook and make meal. It's very simple. This is not so simple. It's rather abstract. But the idea is each of us have to sit with, what does this mean for me? What does it mean for me to practice this philosophy, this faith, and this way of life? Because if I'm just going then I'm not really doing what is most effective in my life. There's a book called Designed for Living. And actually, no, I want to read this one first. So there's a book called Spiritual Fitness by Caroline Reynolds. And she's quoting Holmes. And she says, one of the greatest difficulties in the new order of thought is that we are likely to indulge in too much theory and too little practice. As a matter of fact, we only know as much as we can prove by actual demonstration. Ernest Holmes. Actual demonstration. Are we walking and talking in a manner in which we are demonstrating this philosophy, this faith, and this way of life? Because if we're not demonstrating it, then it's a theoretical idea, which the funny thing is, that's actually what I was doing in Christianity way back when. It was a theoretical practice, theorizing about the life of Jesus, and then living theoretically about the life of Jesus, mind you, but behind everybody's back, talking about folks and gossiping and blah, blah, blah. We were Sunday Christians. We weren't Sunday through Saturday Christians. And even on Sunday, we weren't really Christians. We were pseudo-Christians, reading the Bible in a pseudo manner to embody a pseudo way of life. And all of it was fake. Because at least of the ones that I know, the vast majority of us weren't really living the lessons of Jesus. We weren't trying to embody the Christ. We weren't. So here we are with this whole idea of what this philosophy is, and it comes down to the same questions. Are we embodying it? One of the things that I was talking to somebody about, met with somebody at Panera one time, and we were having a conversation and got into this whole thing about raising of consciousness and shifting consciousness, and this idea came out that if I am not doing what is mine to do, it does nothing for the mass consciousness. Like, if I'm waiting for us, right, for real, I'm waiting for us to move forward and shift consciousness in DC. I'm waiting for us, literally us in this room, I'm waiting for us. How long am I going to be waiting for us to move and shift and change? DC. I can't wait for us. I have to do what is mine to do for me. And in doing that, I am now walking a different walk and I'm talking a different talk. And by that, I become infectious. The whole idea of this little light of mine shining, why is it this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine? All around the world, I'm going to let it shine. All in my home, out in the dark, I'm going to let it shine. Meaning I am going to represent this faith, this philosophy, this way of life, and shine my truth to the degree that when I walk into a room and it is a dark, not literally dark, but it is a dark consciousness, the fact that I have a light, one candle, small flame, everything around it, the darkness has to move away. It has to. And the fact is, Confucius said, if you have a candle, if you have light, if you have knowledge, let others light their candle by yours. So it's not me waiting for, it's me taking this light, however small it may be, and turn it into a bonfire. Because when I set myself ablaze, then I am walking the walk and talking the talk. Then everything that I demonstrate has to be based on love and truth and light. That when someone comes to me and they're bringing anything that is in discord to that, and I mean anything, give you a perfect example. So I'm having a conversation with someone who's a practitioner, and without going into any details or names, she tells me the story of demonstration, where this young man in a cancer ward is told he's going to die soon. And they tell all of the staff, all of the nurses, everybody, such and such is going to die, he's going to die, and da-da-da, it's really soon. So they all go into this young man's room one by one and say goodbye. He starts crying, they're crying, and that's the end of that. But then he hears this one person who's on staff there, he hears her walk by because he knows her walk. And he calls her in. And he says, everybody came in to say goodbye to me. Why didn't you? Don't you care about me? And she says, listen to me and listen carefully. They came in to say goodbye. You told me 3 weeks ago that you wanted to live till your 17th birthday. Is that today? No. Then why do I have a reason to say goodbye? Stiffen up your upper lip, get your mind straight, and stop listening to these fools who don't know you. I know you well enough to not listen to that nonsense. And she literally, it's bullshit. It is not the truth of who you are. It is not the truth of what you want. Period. He wiped his eyes, smiled at her, and she said, do you understand? He said, yes, I do. She got up to walk out, and he called her and said, you know what, blah, 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 I love you. She said, I love you too. She goes about her business. It's the end of her shift. She's getting ready to leave. He hears the walk again, and he hollers out, such and such, yes, I love you. I love you too. The young man lived the entire year till his 17th birthday, and he transitioned a week afterwards. Demonstration. Now, if she had gone in there and said goodbye to him, would he have lived that long?
No.
No. But she went in, and in the face of every doctor, every nurse, every staff member said, and she said, no, not today, not on my watch, no. Period. Are we willing to step forward into this faith, into this philosophy, into this way of life, and say, when something comes to us and it says a lie, are we willing to say no? Are we willing to say yes to the degree? So Ernest Holmes, talk amongst yourselves for a second. Trying to figure out where I put it, because I put notes in here. Okay, here we go. So, if I were to ask you, are you successful? Don't raise your hand, don't answer, ask yourself. Think in your own mind and in your own heart, are you successful? And, properly viewed, we are always successful in all things. That is, we always seem to experience the ideas which dominate our thought, regardless of what those ideas may be. There is always a logical sequence of cause and effect. We cannot expect our experience to be different from the mental patterns we have established for it. We cannot be healthy if we constantly think illness. Neither can we possess wealth if we let our thoughts dwell on poverty. There is a definite correlation between thought and experience, which nothing can violate. To change an experience from bad to better, we change our thinking about the experience, establishing a thought pattern of what we want rather than what we don't want. Successful attainment of better experiences in living depends on the manner in which we are able to manage our thinking. Discover a Richer Life by Ernest Holmes, compiled and edited by Willis Kinnear. Are we training our thoughts the way Bruce Lee trained his body? Are we training our thoughts and our thinking the way Michelangelo trained his hand to paint and to carve? Are we training our minds and our hearts to walk in truth and peace the way the people during the Civil Rights Movement walked in truth and peace? Are we willing to do what is necessary to do so. That's where, see, and that's where it gets to the place down here where it's like, it's uncomfortable. Because there are places within us which we don't like. There are places within us where we were taught to be ashamed. We were taught to deny. We were taught to run from. Anybody in here see the new musical with Hugh Jackman, The Greatest Showman? Only one? Okay, so I don't know what y'all are doing after service, but we're going to the movies. So as soon as service is done, get on your phone, cancel stuff, we got to go. This movie was on so many levels in so many different ways. And it's probably because everything I watch, everything I hear, I always hear it through this metaphysical filter. So there's one scene in the movie, without giving the movie away, where this song is sung about no longer hiding oneself, no longer denying oneself, no longer letting the shame that others want to put on you. You know, the movie is about P.T. Barnum. Fictionalized, but it's a movie about P.T. Barnum. So there are all these circus freaks. And it's a song about them saying, it doesn't matter how tall I am, how short I am, how thick I am, how thin I am. It doesn't matter that I am a woman and I have a beard. It doesn't matter that I have tattoos over the... It doesn't matter. I will not feel the shame that these people want me to feel because I am different, because I am unique. Every single one of us is different and unique because there is one mind, one source, one God that has chosen to show up in, through, and as every one of us. And the fact that we are different and unique and spectacular in that diversity demonstrates that it is what is meant to be. Why do you think they say no two people have the same fingerprints? Now think about it. It's 2018. Let's just, for the sake of, marinate on this mathematical computation. How many people are currently on, don't say an answer, how many people are currently on the face of this planet right now? Just get a number in your mind. If you can, comma, if you can put it in, how many are on the face of the planet right now? And now, let's backtrack to the birth of the first human. How many have there been up to this point? Everybody. Different fingerprints. Everybody. And from this point forward, they're talking about the number of people born every minute is like 40,000. That's a lot, baby. But 40,000 every minute. That's 40,000 new fingerprints. Identical only to the person. Even twins don't have identical fingerprints. They are identical only to that person. That means they are special, they are unique. There is nothing else like that. How much snow fell this year thus far? And yet, every snowflake is different. How many snowflakes have there ever been since the first snowfall? It is everything in all of this demonstrates uniqueness, specialness, individuality. But it all goes back to only one source, one mind, one thing itself. You are it. You are, like we say, there is one mind. That mind is God's mind. That mind is magnificent. That mind is my mind now. Whatever you put in there, there's only one mind. That mind is God's mind. That mind is insert whatever. That mind is special. That mind is my mind now. That mind is glorious. That mind is my mind now. That mind is intelligent and smart and capable of all things. That mind is my mind now. That mind has no limits. That mind is my mind now. That mind can dream and imagine and create. And that mind is my mind now. If I tap into and use it. Because either I'm using it for the good of creating what I want, or I'm creating what I don't want. But creating, I'm going to do. So are we willing to sit with, how do I examine? Maybe that means meeting with a practitioner. Maybe that means picking up a Joel Goldsmith book, an Ernest Holmes book, a Dalai Lama book. Maybe it means picking up something that is going to make you say, I'm not just reading this for the sake of reading it. I'm not reading it for a class. I'm reading it for my own particular edification to improve who I am. Because the better I am at this thing called life. I moved from being a white belt in my life to being a blue belt in my life, to being a brown belt in my life, to eventually becoming a black belt where I got this thing. And the funny thing is, with martial arts, masters will tell you that they are never done. Because the thing with the black belt is you get the black belt, and in China and Japan, well, Japan for the black belt, they don't wash them. So the belt stays, and they put it on, and they wear it, and they wear it, and they wear it, and wear it, and eventually the black belt turns to gray, and then it turns back to white. So the idea is we are ever emptying our cup and learning again, empty the cup and learn again, if we are willing. Are we willing to examine whatever is going on in our lives, no longer asking disempowering questions? Why me? Why now? Why him? Why? What is this teaching me? What is this pulling out of me? How do I respond to this situation? How do I respond to my parents when they want to dismiss? How do I respond to my government when they whatever? How do I respond to anything that is showing up in my life that is a lie, is discord, is disharmony, is disease, is what? How do I respond with this philosophy, with this faith, and with this way of life? Because if I don't, then that little light of mine, in essence, is what I'm doing. And for me, I'm setting myself ablaze. Are you willing to join me? Let's pray. Grounding ourselves in this thought, in this breath, in this moment. What I know as I speak is that there is only one power, one presence, one source, one divine universe, the thing itself, that one mind that is called by many names. Whether we call it the Tao, universe, spirit, love, God. There is only one. And if there is only one, it must be showing up right here, right now, in, through, and as me. And if this is true, it must also be true for everyone in this room, everyone in this building, this city, this state, this country, this planet, and beyond. There is only one. It is God, and it is good. I am God, and I am good. Each and every one of us is God, and we are good. And knowing this, I also know that anything that shows up to challenge that truth is actually a lie. Because there is no man, woman, circumstance, situation, event that can ever destroy, dissuade, deny, or denounce the truth of who and what we are. We are love given a body. And that body is made from the very substance that love is. That all that God is, as magnificent, is right here present in, through, and as me, in, through, and as every one of us. And knowing this, I know how glorious, how great, and how magnificent a species, a planet, a world, a universe that God has created of itself, demonstrating through, in, and as us. And so in gratitude, I release this word knowing that there is nothing that needs to be added or taken away because this word came from the one. It is spoken through an individualized manifestation of the one, about the individualized manifestations of the one, and now placed back into the law of the one. And knowing this, I know it is done. And so it is.
So it is.